we need to stop this race towards profit, this race towards productivity, and buffer that with proper indicators that underpin resilience and not only survival, but allowing people to thrive, not just survive in today's society.
Hello, welcome to the CSO Impact Podcast, where we interview leaders from sustainable futures, like the book did. We're here together with Sandrine Dixson-Declève, co-president of the Club of Rome and the main initiator and driver of the Earth for All movement and ideas. She also helped us with the praise of the book, and we're at beautiful Terra Tuscany, an event in the beautiful Italian landscape where ideas flow and we enjoy a beautiful company, and we will sit down to learn a little bit more about the background and Sandrine's work.
Sure. So, well, first of all, it is a pleasure to be here and have an olive tree right behind you, Harald. So we are really in the midst of nature here at Terra Tuscany, which is fabulous, to remind us a little bit that we're just not in nature, but we are a part of nature. Yeah. I am the co-president of the Club of Rome. The Club of Rome is an organization that's been around since 1968. Aurelio Pace was an entrepreneur, actually, who started the Club of Rome because he started to see deep dysfunctionalities in the way in which society was growing. Population was actually growing to a point where he felt that there would be huge impacts on natural resources. When we celebrated or commemorated the 50th anniversary of the seminal report, The Limits to Growth, we decided that it was necessary to rethink some of the alternative scenarios from The Limits to Growth within a 21st century context. And so we actually wrote collectively with economists and scientists Earth for All, where I am actually the lead author. And Earth for All, a survival guide for humanity, is not only just a book, but it's actually become an initiative. So I am also the executive chair of Earth for All, the movement, the initiative. But while I do those two things, I also very much believe that my strength is working with a variety of different actors and audiences, game changers. So I sit on a series of different boards, executive boards that are predominantly industry, academic institutions, and also NGOs. And then I also teach. So, yeah, I'm not bored. That's for sure.
No, and you travel to beautiful places.
And I'm lucky enough to get invited to come to beautiful places, yes.
Exactly. Now, this is already impressive. You had a career before you did this, but your roles as a co-president and the author. So what's your day-to-day, or how do you define your role in what you do right now?
Well, there's my role for the Club of Rome and the book, which is I do travel a lot, actually, talking about Earth for All, because I've realized that once we published the book, first of all, it was a bestseller in many countries. It's been translated now in 10 languages. And there's a real demand for an understanding of how we can get out of the mess that we've created. What does that look like? What are the solutions? But also understanding the reality. So it's a bit of a reality check, which is we know that we will not meet our planetary boundaries or stay within an operating system of this planet if we don't deal with poverty and inequality. That was really the deep resonating message from Earth for All. And what we came up with by looking at social and environmental tipping points and the interrelationship between these tipping points in the system dynamic model was that we needed 5 key turnarounds to get us out of the mess that we've created. So the climate mess, the conflict mess, and the compound effects of both of those, plus future pandemics, the polycrisis, etc. Those 5 key turnarounds are actually looking at poverty, as I said, and inequality first. Very important to deal with both of those. Not only inequality between North and South, but growing inequality within the global North, but also address the empowerment of women and men, but in particular, women, in particular in countries where they are not empowered, don't have access to education, and don't have access also to decision-making. Even though we realized during COVID that the care economy, which is such an important economy, run by women in many cases, is a parallel economy, and it should be part of the economy. And then the last 2 key turnarounds are the ones that we know the best, and we're working on the most in terms of the solutions for decarbonization, and that's food and energy. And it's those 5 turnarounds that get us to what we call the giant leap. So I am working on that with governments, We've even been asked by Ukraine to help them rebuild Ukraine using this model. We've just finished actually an analysis of the African region. We've just worked with Austria and Kenya to put in place national programs,
Right.
but then also working with civil society around citizen assemblies as to how we can actually create democratic processes and discussions around these issues, and many other actors, business community, insurance community, etc.
I like you also mentioned in your talk that you worked with governments who start to adopt, let's say, this notion of well-being and let's say maybe even, let dare to say, futuristic point of view for some of them. Can you mention maybe some of that project or initiative, how the policymakers reacted to some of your work with others?
Yeah, I think that what most policymakers found interesting, including, for example, cities, because we're also working with C40, one of the largest gathering of cities, is that not only do we give solutions, but we look at the interrelationship between solutions. So mobility alongside energy change, alongside, for example, new built environment solutions within a cityscape or within a broader nation, very tailor-made to their needs. So we will, for example, in terms of the national program for Austria and also the national program for Kenya, tailor the model, bring in the data that's very much linked to their national context, and then see what possible solutions they are. Now, why were they so interested, these countries? I think that what we clearly show is that well-being is decreasing. People are not happy, but also people are struggling economically. Because well-being is decreasing, social tension is increasing. Governments don't want high social tension. High social tension means instability and insecurity. So we're enabling governments to put in place the right policies so that they can create more stability. But this is also why it's important to work at the regional level or at the global level, because we know that instability now is actually becoming a global problem because of climate change. And so I think that all of these aspects give them some level of security in terms of how they can solve some of these big problems.
I like your system thinking because most people are focused, especially corporates, they're busy with compliance and they're busy with sustainability, ESG, or, in the US we cannot call it that anymore. So there's a lot of complex thing in the just calling it sustainability. And I like that you open it up and say, well, there's the policy and there's poverty and there's much equality issues. So how do you, let's say, maybe define your point of view on sustainability? Or do you call it now regenerative economy that we're walking to? What's your, let's say, how do you define, if I say, hey, you're working in sustainability, you say, no, stop? Or how would you describe that coin that term?
So I started my career actually in sustainability. Actually, 35 years ago, started in responsible care in the chemical sector, where we started to think that actually we needed to do things differently and be more responsible. Then responsible care became more sustainability, especially when we saw the first Rio conference and then Joburg and so many other conferences that have started to bring in the whole sustainability concept, as well as the SDGs. But what I'm seeing now, and this is what we say in our book, is that there are many different terms that are now trying to say the same thing. And there are many overused terms. Regenerative now is the next sustainability term, and it's being overused already, where people don't even know what it means anymore. Most important for me is to come back to value and to some kind of moral compass. And if that's sustainability, then great. But that moral compass and the real sustainability from the very beginning has been that we need to understand social and environmental needs at the right time and at the same time. So how do we actually bring those two together? And I don't really care what we call it. I think most importantly, we need to get back to some type of value-based decision-making, some kind of morality that respects the environment, that respects people, and that puts in place the right systems, governance, financial, and economic, that supports people, planet, and prosperity at the same time. And that, for me, is the most important, and that's what we say in the book. So it could be using donut economics, for example, from Kate Rayworth, one of our members, but it could also be ensuring that we have a proper twin transition, as we say at the European level, between the Green Deal and a digital deal. And what does that look like? And again, as long as it follows a moral compass and is value-based and purpose-based, then that is what we need today.
Right. Now, one of the actors, and our main focus is working with corporates and chief sustainability officers. And what's your point of view of these people, these leaders, and the actor of the enterprises or the corporate world, the private sector in this regard?
So we absolutely need the private sector to be part of this journey. And many leaders are. CSOs, chief sustainability officers, have been around for quite some time. What I always say is that actually sustainability should be the bottom line of any company. It should be fully integrated, vertical, horizontal. It should be the company modus operandi. The problem often has been that CSOs, and they say it themselves, in fact, the questions that we've had here at Terra Tuscany from many of the CSOs is, how do we actually ensure that we do become the only mission for the company? I think that we need CSOs to be CEOs and CEOs to be CSOs. In my dreams, it would be we don't have a CSO anymore. We have a CEO that has decided that sustainability, regenerative, economic thinking is fully integrated into the bottom line of the company. But I also think that we need to, beyond the microeconomics and the role of business, understand the way in which business operates within the macroeconomics and the way in which business needs to shift from purely profit-making and shareholder value back into what I was talking about, which is purpose. And that is essential. Bringing businesses on the journey where they understand and no longer have the pressure to just perform from a profit perspective, but instead to perform by solving the challenges that we have today. And that's a total shift. And maybe in closing on this, the key issue is we know we're going to lose up to 10% of GDP globally per annum if we get to 3 degrees Celsius. We know we're going to lose 2.5 to 3% if we get to 1.5. And we're almost there. So we need to stop this race towards profit, this race towards productivity, and buffer that with proper indicators that underpin resilience and not only survival, but allowing people to thrive, not just survive in today's society.
In closing, we can talk for 2 hours. We have a certain time slot. And we know there's let's say, scenarios are bad, and we have the giant leap idea that there could be something that if we do these and these steps. Can you leave us with, let's say, hope, optimism? We need optimism. If we don't do it, I always think we need to bring some tech optimism, because techies say, oh yeah, it's only 6 more years. That means 6 more iPhones, 6 more, I don't know, NVIDIA generations. Not that a useful thing always with AI. But what do you see 1 or 2 things that you say, well, stuff is happening. It might be the small, let's say, plant or small olive tree right now, but we have some things which are on the right track that you see.
I think in the energy field, sitting on the board, for example, of EDP, which is the largest electricity provider of Portugal,
fantastic.
I saw an absolute shift in all of our conversations, which were socially and environmentally driven. Also linked to performance, but understanding that the bottom line was social and environmental. The transition out of coal, committing to be 100% out of coal, out of any brown energy by 2030. And they have stuck to that commitment, and they've been bringing all of their staff, all of their workers on that journey. I see other utilities doing the same thing, in particular in Europe. We see the parity of the price between actually gas and oil and renewables. In fact, renewables is cheaper in many cases. So this is the moment to invest. That gives me hope. The technology is there. We are moving. The problem is the pace and the scale, and the fact that those that are incumbent are trying to hold us back. The other key move is regenerative agriculture. The fact that farmers are shifting, are understanding that they need to protect their soil, that they need to shift out of industrial agriculture. But again, the incumbents in the agriculture sector are really trying to push back and hold on to those profits. So right now we're seeing that tension. We're starting to see the real growing pushback from the incumbents because they feel the pain. But we also see that people are realizing, and in all of our statistics, we just finished a G20 survey. It shows very clearly that across the G20, citizens, they want a well-being economy. They know climate change is here. They want to act, but they also want to make sure that they're not the only ones that are paying for that transition. And I think that's my last key point. If we're going to make this work, we have to go back to that morality. Inequality and poverty is growing, not decreasing, in many countries in the South as well as the North. So we have to start taxing windfall profits. We have to start taxing wealth. We need to make sure that people pay their fair share, and those that are profiting pay more.
Sandrine, again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your energy, because we need you need people who have this voice, the mission, and this heartfelt, charisma, however you describe it, the aura to push, because you mentioned a couple of, when we talk, you get meetings done where people say, well, this meeting has never done, these people don't talk. And I really commend you for your work. You had a recent Lifetime Achievement Award for DLD, and that's maybe only 1.0. So I'm glad to just follow your journey and see what the 2.0 Sandrine is coming up to. There's a lot to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harald.